How's it going? I'm Jared Gillis. Welcome to another All About RVs. Today, we're looking at the top items missed when winterizing the RV. These things really will only cost you a little bit of your attention and a little bit of time to do it right. And what it'll save you is a lot more time and expense fixing those problems on the other end if you miss them the next time you go to use the RV. So let's not waste any time. Let's get right into the list. So now the first thing on our list, because it's really easy to miss because it's separate from the rest of the plumbing system, is the tank flush on the RV. So here we have two different methods. Number one, we can blow that out with air. And number two, we can pump antifreeze into it. Just like the rest of the RV, we can do that here. The only thing that we're lacking if we're wanting to put antifreeze in there is that there's not a pump associated with the tank flush. So if we wanted to, we could use the hose from the outside spigot and use the antifreeze going through it to the tank flush. Or my preference is to be able to use a hand pump in order to pump that antifreeze into that tank flush. Works really easy. You can keep those systems separated and you get that antifreeze into that system. Or a lot of RVers use a blowout adapter to be able to use compressed air to blow out that line. Either way you choose, tank flush system solved. The next thing that often gets overlooked is when you're winterizing your RV is where you're pushing that water you're trying to expel from the system to. If you've gone to the dump station before you started the process to empty all those tanks, when you're getting all the water out of your lines, that is going to be going to your holding tanks, and that water is then going to be sitting in your holding tanks. So the best way to do it is to go to the dump station or dump your tanks after you've done the entire winterization process. You don't want to go through this entire process thinking that you got all the water out of your lines just to move it to a different part of the RV. You want to make sure that you get all that water completely out of the RV. It's details like that that really don't take any additional time, just paying attention to the order in which you're doing things to make sure that you do it all the way and thoroughly. So let's move on to the next one. Now, for these next ones, it's vital to understand that both methods, the airing out of the lines, blowing them out, or the antifreeze, they both have their problems and setbacks, their drawbacks. So let me show you why this is really important. So for the antifreeze, there's two different types, and I don't think everybody pays attention to which type they are getting. One is going to be ethanol-based, and one is a propylene glycol. And if you look at both of them, they're both frozen solid. They're not flowing out of there. So why have antifreeze if it's going to freeze? I mean, I just put this in the freezer yesterday and these are completely frozen. Some people say they turn to slush, but this is definitely more than slush. But when you compare it to water, you can see and feel a difference between these cups. It's hard to tell, but this water is cracked and bulging and it is expanded where these have not expanded. So hopefully the pipes didn't break with these in it when it froze compared to if water was in there, it would freeze. Hence why we're winterizing the RV. So we'll get to why this is a drawback, but something that a lot of people miss is that there's two different types. This ethanol one is one that I like to avoid. Just like I avoid ethanol when I'm putting it in my generator or any small engine lawnmowers, it's really hard on the seals and the components, and that's not what I want for our RV sitting there all winter. So the propylene glycol leaves less taste in the lines, it's considered to be less toxic, and is less harsh on the seals and the plumbing, which are all positives for what I would want for winterizing our RV. And you can't just look at the price tag because the propylene glycol is a little bit more expensive. I did notice when I went to Walmart, they had the cheap stuff, but then they also had a more expensive line, and it was still ethanol in it. It went down to a colder temperature, but still had ethanol. And the ethanol ones show that they had a flammable risk, but you don't get that warning with the propylene glycol. And so one of the drawbacks to using the antifreeze in your system and leaving it in there, you could end up with this frozen pink stuff in your system. There's people that want to use their RV midwinter and they go to drain it out and they realize they have to warm up their entire RV for a pretty good amount of time in order just to get this stuff out of the lines. But you might be thinking that I use air so that I avoid all of this because I don't like putting any chemicals into my system, but that has some drawbacks as well. So now with blowing out the lines, you don't need a lot of equipment. You have a blowout plug that you can blow out the system. Now it does have some drawbacks. The drawbacks are you can still leave water inside of that system. Depending on how your plumbing setup is, when you have a belly in the pipe somewhere, you can have air be able to bypass some of the water that's in there. When you get a little bit of that water that's left in there, when it settles down into where you have joints and connections, those are definitely going to be the weak points where you can have that water freeze up and then break something. Either way that you go about this, you're going to have people that have used antifreeze for years, never had a problem. You're going to use people that have just solely used blowing out the system, never had a problem. Then you've had people that do one or the other and have had things break inside their RV depending on how it's all laid out. I'll show you why and what vulnerable spots are easily missed. First is the bypass on the standard water heater. Even if you have a Nautilus panel, they all work pretty similarly. When you close the valves of the hot, the cold going to the water heater and you open the valve that's going to bypass it, you can see these short little pipes there can have water still stuck in them. I'll show you how to handle this and how to fix it, because this can actually happen on either method that you use. The next one is the water pump and the hoses around it. If you're just using air, you could miss this. Next, the line to fill your tank can be pretty easy to miss either way you go. The next one, tankless water heaters, can be a little bit different because some say never to use RV antifreeze in them, and then some using compressed air isn't effective and will leave you vulnerable. The good news is all these problems have really quick, easy solutions in order to solve them. But there's one really important thing that you need to know about using air in your system to do it safely so we don't cause any damage. The last thing you want to do is cause damage to the fixtures and fittings, the very thing that you're trying to protect. Let's look at how to do it right, and it might be gear that you already have. So there's a couple of options. We should be using a pressure regulator when we're setting up our RV with city water, going to a campground. We should be using a pressure regulator, and these will work for the air compressor as well. It is something that I like to test, making sure that that water pressure regulator is also going to be working for air. Or you can step up your game and use something like this. I picked this up from eTrailer. It has a pressure regulator built on it that is meant for a compressor. So you can dial in the pressure you want. You have a gauge right on there. You know exactly what you're sending to the RV in order to use it. So it's a small little device that can help protect your plumbing as you're trying to protect the plumbing from the freezing temperatures. So links are going to be down in the description to everything that we talked about. eTrailer's been a great resource for me, for RVers, for finding the gear that you need to take care of your RV and maintain it. And beyond that, lots of accessories for RVing, but they're a great resource to get good information, find good products that you can use. They've been a sponsor of the channel for a long time, helping me out with other projects and being able to test out gear to see how things land side by side. And they've always told me, whatever gear that you get from us, you can say anything you want. And I appreciate that. They're willing to let the good information get out there, even if I have something poor to say about some of the products that are out there. I really respect that about them. So links are going to be down in the description. Check out eTrailer down below. But now, since we've covered the right equipment to use and the preferred antifreeze in order to use, we can look at getting to all these problem areas and really just how easy it is. So number one, I like to blow out my lines first. This will do a couple of things. First, it's going to get the majority of the water out there. So when we go to use antifreeze, it's not going to let that antifreeze get diluted from the water that's in the lines, potentially making it less effective. The second part is it also helps me get the problem areas like the water heater bypass. So I'll use air to blow it out with the bypass on and with the bypass off. Remember, as long as we're using a regulator, it's going to be safe to do that. It can handle water pressure. It can handle the same amount of air pressure. The next thing I do for these problem areas is I use antifreeze in the system. This is going to hit so many of those problem areas that can exist, the lower joints, the pipes around the pump itself, and the tankless water heaters that you can use the antifreeze in. I know some people are going to say that this is overkill, but this is very thorough. I almost guarantee you're going to find on social media come the springtime when people are getting their RV out of winterization and they only used air, I guarantee you there's going to be some busted water heaters. The more thorough we are, the less water heaters we're going to lose to freezing. The next one is the tank fill. This one's really simple. I don't like putting antifreeze in my freshwater tank, so this is an area that I'll just use air. Oftentimes it's going to be gravity fed, but using air is going to help ensure that I got all of that out of there. Then one of the last things I do is I like to drain the antifreeze out of the system, and I'll actually use air to blow it out to get the majority of it out, because remember that antifreeze can freeze. And I saw a lot of questions last year of how do I get the frozen antifreeze out of my lines when I'm wanting to use the RV? If you're you're going to Quartzsite, you're going to Florida, maybe you're hitting one of the RV shows this winter. It can be difficult to warm up the RV enough to get all that thawed out so that you can flush it all out to use the RV. But if you blow it out now, it makes it way easier to de-winterize. The place that I'll leave antifreeze is inside the toilet and in the P-traps inside the RV. Both of those are places that I want to keep that antifreeze. But doing this, you're going to hit the majority of the problem areas that are often missed. We do have a guide that does step-by-step of how we like to winterize the RV, but I think some of these are areas that were missed in that process. And I imagine a lot of people are going to say that this is way overkill, but honestly, it's pretty thorough in order to go through it this way. And once you have the equipment out, it's really quick to be able to winterize an RV. It doesn't take long to set up the air compressor, blow out the lines, and once you have the equipment out, doing that twice really doesn't add a ton of time. It's a pretty short process. But I hope some of this information helps you out, seeing those problem areas that often get overlooked and can really lead to problems that you have to fix in the coming camping season. And this will help prepare the RV so that you don't have more repairs to do next time you want to go use the RV. So anyways, I think that's going to do it for today. I hope this helped you guys out in some way. So as always, if we don't see you on the road, hopefully we will. See you next video. Take care.